there's a pastor writing to me out of concern because I used the word sodomite. He was concerned because I, as a Republican candidate, used the word sodomy to describe sodomites, whom other people call gay or homosexual. Interesting response, and I think a very important response, far more important than my ability to make this subject entertaining for you. A thing which I deeply regret. I had written to the pastor asking him for suggestions for a campaign slogan, and I had some options. And he wrote back and said, "I have no useful suggestion for you. I wrote at some length about how inappropriate your continued use of the term sodomite to refer to the gay community is, and how counterproductive that is to your goal. The true conservatives are already with you. It's the middle conservatives who are on the fence you need to swing to your support, and you've just made it much less likely that they will do that. It seems you would rather be inflammatory than effective, so I can't take your candidacy seriously. I'm not blocking your email address, and I'd still like to hear what's going on. When I see that you're getting serious about effecting change and not just using a political platform to justify name-calling, we may have something to talk about. You are brilliant and have challenged my thinking in many ways." Thank you for that. Someone needs to stand up and say, "Enough, let's get back to it." But until you get how speaking the truth in love really works, I don't think it's you. Respectfully and with great admiration for your persistence and intent, a pastor. I wrote back, "Thank you for saying these things openly to me. I grieve that so many fellow Christians have similar animus towards use of God's terminology in public. Has it been 10 years since we talked about it? If I had your writings again, I would like to reconsider them. I've posted my reasons for using God's terms at examiner.com. The articles are copied below. And here are the two articles. First one was called Marriage Repair. Brian Brown came to town. Brown is president of the National Organization for Marriage. B. Brown at nationformarriage.org. August 1st, Sunday afternoon at 2, a CBN, that's Christian Broadcasting Network, reporter followed him, along with a few speakers he had scheduled, to the state capitol. The sun was so hot that when people gathered under the trees on the lawn, ignoring the podium and literature table on the hot, shadeless concrete, the podium and table were moved to accommodate the people. You can see I'm dawdling about getting to the point of this article. I just need a little more time to build up my courage. The points raised were all very good. Betrayal. Danny Carroll, leader of Iowa Family Policy Center, who lost his election as a state representative because of massive out-of-state homosexual funding, explained how 5 years ago, when he was the floor manager of a constitutional amendment to protect traditional marriage, the argument against it, which prevailed, was that it was unlikely any judge would authorize gay marriage anyway. Only later did he learn that efforts to appoint and nurture such a judge and to bring the right case before him had begun 6 years before. The rule of law. Judges have no legitimate jurisdiction to redefine marriage, impose their legal invention on the whole state, and then order county clerks to comply. Democrats vow to never let voters address this travesty with a constitutional amendment, and they don't even seem to be ashamed of themselves. The economy. Tamara Scott, State Director for Concerned Women for America, said up to $280 billion a year is the cost of, quote, fragmented families, according to the Family Research Council. The slippery slope. I didn't hear this at the rally, but in an email from NOM's website, now that sodomites consider gay marriage in the bag, it's time to move on to polygamy. polyamory. There's a reference to the Wikipedia website under polyamory. There's actually an article about this thing, which, let's see, it defines it as multiple relationships between consenting adults, something like that. So we need to move on to polyamory so entire rock bands can marry. It'd make quite a tour, promises the Huffington Post. I gave a link to that article. There's no argument you can make against a poly marriage that wouldn't work just as well as an argument against gay marriage. I'm in favor of real marriage equality. Love the one you're with. Love the two or three. The two or more you're with, if you can work that out. Marry them if you're into that kind of thing. But until the gay marriage movement embraces polygamy, well, they're just acting like bigots and haters, aren't they? It's an actual article at the Huffington Post. So, all these points are sad but true. This battle is so crucial that another defeat is unthinkable. Therefore, it is unthinkably tragic when Christians leave their most powerful weapon back at the church. To use every other justification for your positions than the one which actually persuaded you not only leaves you unpersuasive, but seeming a little odd. Slightly less fanatical than me, perhaps, but from the perspective of a God-denying liberal, a bit odd. So we leave our swords back at the church to keep them sterile because we don't want any blood on them. To my readers from the FBI and BATF, I'm talking about our Bibles. See, Ephesians 6:17, the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God. Also Hebrews 4:12. Now, to all readers, I am speaking generally, although I heard no mention of God while I was at the rally. I had to leave the rally early, so I don't know if they actually did talk about God later on. All lesser weapons are vulnerable. For example, Laura Millsaps, writing for the Iowa Independent, was able to dispose of Tamara Scott's point with, quote, "The FRC's studies have been routinely criticized by media and academia for questionable methodology and politicized conclusions." A paper-thin criticism to the majority of Americans who routinely criticize media and academia for questionable methodology and politicized conclusions, but a criticism strong enough to knock us out of the ring in our bid to win the admiration of the liberal minority. Besides, how can Scott's grim economic outlook stand against Millsap's rosy, quote, 2008 study by the Williams Institute at the UCLA School of Law, which estimated that same-sex weddings and related tourism would bring $160 million to the state of Iowa through 2011. And an extra $5.3 million per year in tax revenue. What a bright future liberals promise. That was the first article, and here's the part 2 of that article, the sequel. Marriage Repair Part 2, Is It Possible Without God?